Take a slow, deep breath and let your shoulders drop. Let your eyelids grow a little heavier. Feel the hush of evening wrap around you like a gentle shawl. Outside, the wind sighs against old stone walls, and the sea murmurs far below. The air is cool and clean, like mountain rain and distant woods. You are safe here, surrounded by stillness, comfort, and quiet light. Now let your mind wander. Let it drift toward a place both ancient and peaceful, where the clouds lean low and the sea kisses the rocks with an endless hush, golden, flickering. It is called the Lantern of Saint Brida, and they say it has never gone out. Not once, not in storm, nor snow, nor war. A small, ivy-covered dwelling with moss on the eaves and smoke curling gently from the chimney. And a young keeper named May wraps herself in a shawl passed down from Breda herself. Outside, the wind combs through the tall grass, brushing her legs with cool fingers. The stars are distant and pale behind thin clouds, but the path to the chapel is clear, worn smooth by generations of quiet footsteps. She lights a small beeswax candle and places it on the window ledge. A lone owl watches from the crooked arm of a birch tree. It's cool, smooth, shaped like a curling vine. She breathes in deeply, the scent of salt and old cedar wood, then steps inside. Somewhere down below, the tide churns and breaks against the cliff base, as it always has. On the altar sits the lantern, brass, glass, and memory. Its light is gentle tonight, not bright. Who was a keeper before her? How during the coldest winter, when the sea froze in jagged teeth and no boats came home, the lantern still glowed with remembrance? How when lightning struck the steeple, the lantern stayed bright, just enough to keep the dark at the edges. Since childhood, its glow was a lullaby, a promise she could always see from a window, even on sleepless nights. And now, it is her turn to keep it, her turn to believe, and tend, and guard. But the light behind her stays steady, like a heartbeat. The flame dances, as if it remembers the tune. It is said the cottage feels warmer than any other house, even in deep winter. In her mind, the chapel fades. Instead, she sees moments layered through Timbrida's hands, lighting the very first flame. The hush of snow falling outside while the light flickers warm within. The soft tears of those who come here in sorrow, sitting quietly, letting the glow dry their eyes, because the lantern's flame lives in the hearts of its caretakers. The creak of wood settling, the faint scent of lavender and wax, the memory of Brida kneeling in this very spot 100 years ago, watching, waiting, welcoming. Then, quietly, she rises, presses her hand once more to the altar, and whispers something only the lantern hears. She steps out into the night. Its flame endures, brushing away leaves, wiping down the glass, whispering prayers no one else could hear. Not just the physical lantern, but the care. And across the hills, no matter how dark the hour, people sleep knowing the lantern still burns, that someone still watches, that some promises are never broken. Not out of habit, but reverence. She does not speak. There's no need. The lantern has never asked for words. Only presence. Only peace. The sacred trust of tending something meant to never end. The light, she said, was not just oil and wick. It was hope, distilled. A promise, a watchful eye for those lost at sea. A guiding star for weary souls. There, on a ledge of stone and grass, sits a chapel no larger than a shepherd's house. The flame dances a little higher, then settles. Outside, the wind presses against the chapel walls, but cannot enter. The light is safe, its roof of slate weathered by time. Its bell long silent, but one light has never dimmed. A place where time moves differently, slowly, like candle wax pooling on a wooden altar, where memories drift like leaves on a chapel floor. Our story begins high upon the cliffs of a forgotten coast. For more than 100 years, a single lantern has burned in the chapel's window. The villagers below speak of it in soft tones, as if loud voices might blow the light away. They say, it began with a woman named Brida, a healer and a midwife, who came to the cliff with nothing but a wooden box and a broken heart. She lit a lantern on the chapel altar to remember someone she lost, and then she never left. She became the first keeper of the flame. Every evening, she would climb the narrow stone steps to the chapel. And when Brida grew old, when her hands shook and her breath came shallow, she passed the flame to another. So it was passed from one gentle hand to the next. By tradition, each keeper lives in the stone cottage just below the chapel. Tonight, in that very cottage, a soft voice hums a melody from long ago. May stands, stretches, and opens the worn wooden door. She walks it slowly, her boots barely stirring the earth. When May reaches the chapel door, she lays a hand on the carved iron handle. The air within the chapel is still. It always is. Dust swirls softly in the candlelight, and the Puzzoli 3 roseweight in perfect silence. May kneels before it. She checks the oil, polishes the glass, and with careful hands, adjusts the wick. May sits in one of the pews, listening to the silence. It isn't empty, no. It's full of things unseen. She remembers the stories told by her grandmother. She was told, this flame is not a light like others. It does not burn only with oil. It burns with devotion, with ritual, and May believes it. She leans her head back and closes her eyes. She has never known a life without the lantern. Outside, the clouds part just a little, and the moon brushes silver across the sea. From the chapel window, the lantern shines out like a gentle eye. May remains until her candle burns low. The path home is still quiet. Down in the village, lights are dimmed, curtains are drawn. In her cottage, May returns to her armchair by the home. A kettle hums faintly on the stove, and the soft glow of her bedside candle welcomes her back. Even the birds have quieted, tucked beneath wing and leaf. Only the rustle of the wind remains, brushing the thatched roof, breathing through the chimney, and beyond, the sound of the time. Slow, ancient, faithful. She pours warm chamomile into a clay cup and sips slowly, feeling the warmth reach through her chest and fingers. Inside are the records of all who came before her, names written in careful ink, some with little drawings beside them. Brida's symbol is a single flame surrounded by stars. The boy steps across the threshold like someone entering a dream. Others chose leaves, shells, feathers. May draws a soft spiral beside her own name. The shape of wind on water, the window frames, the lanterns, gentle light, still glowing above, steady and silent. She doesn't ask who they are. In places like this, names are less important than needs. She takes the kitten in her hands, feeling the slight tremble of her ribs, the warmth of life still within, full of quiet promises, full of nights like this one. Then she gives the boy a seat, a dry towel, and a steaming mug of milk and honey. He watches quietly, eyes never straying far from the kitten. It is the hour when the world folds itself in sleep. It's a lullaby, made of almost nothing, just breath and memory. As she hums, she dips her fingers into a small jar of balm and gently rubs it into the kitten's fur. May lifts a small book from the side table. Its spine is cracked, its pages yellow with time. It's for the ones who are lost and the ones who are waiting. She closes the book and holds it to her chest, feeling the weight of it not heavy, but full. The kitten lets out a tiny, barely there purr, and the rhythm of it blends with the quiet crackle of the fire. May sits nearby, donning an old pair of socks, glancing every so often toward her. To sleeping guests, the air is cold but clean, and the light from the lantern shines stronger now, cutting through the mist like a golden thread. He drinks in small sips, the mug warm in his hands. She sets the vial down and walks to the door. When she opens it, a boy stands there, cloaked and shivering, a bundle in his arms. She can feel it in the air, in the taste of salt, in the hush between waves. But she does not fear it. The lantern has weathered many storms, and now, so will she. She looks toward the lantern's glow, visible even from here, and she feels their presence not as ghosts, but as warmth. Not bright, but constant. Not loud, but unshakable. As knowing. From the mantel, she takes a small, hand-carved box. Inside is a vial of oil drawn from a rare blossom that blooms only at midsummer. She's still glowing, she says gently. Like the lantern. That's a good sign. She stirs the fire gently, coaxing it to brighter life. The boy doesn't speak, but he holds the bundle tightly. May kneels beside him and lifts the edge inside as a small kitten, breathing slow and soft. Brida called it moon. The scent is faint and silvery, like rain on silk. Each keeper uses only a few drops each year, mixing it with the lantern oil on sacred days. May uncorks it, just to breathe it in. It smells like memory, like something half-forgotten but never lost. Outside, a soft knocking at the door breaks the hush. It is not loud, just to gentle taps. May isn't startled, he says, just looks up at her with wide eyes. She steps aside, wordlessly inviting him in. He stands near the hearth. Esme takes his soaked cloak and hangs it to dry. She's been sick, the boy whispers at last. They said you could help. May nods. She wraps her in a soft cloth and places her near the fire. May kneels again and begins to hum an old tune, one Brida once sang to sick animals and frightened children. Outside, the wind rises again, and the lantern above gleams golden through the window. The boy slowly relaxes, his shoulders lowering, his breath deepening. What is the light for? He asks quietly. May doesn't answer at once. It's a light that never ends, she finally says. The boy nods, though he may not fully understand. Will the kitten be okay? He asks. May offers a small smile, the kind Brida once gave her. He leans his head on the edge of the armchair, the mug cradled close. His eyes flutter once. Then again, May lets him rest. The hours pass slowly, with no rush, and when the boy's breathing deepens, when the kitten curls into herself like a curled leaf, May rises and opens the window just a little. It's said that sometimes the light flares brighter when a heart finds peace. That it knows when it's needed most. May believes this. She sets a warm blanket over the boy, tucks the kitten a little closer to the fire, and returns to her own chair. A storm is brewing far out at sea. As she sits in the warm stillness, she thinks again of Brida, of all the keepers whose hands shaped this story. Somewhere, far below the cliffs, a ship struggles against the waves. A sailor scans the darkness, praying for light, and above, the lantern burns. And perhaps, in some quiet, mystical way, that sailor feels hope stir in his chest, just enough to keep going. Morning arrives slowly on the cliff, wrapped in gray mist and quiet dew. The sun does not rise so much as whisper its way through cloud banks, casting a faint silver hue over the chapel stones. Inside the cottage, the fire has faded to embers, and the boy still sleeps curled beneath the wool blanket. Her eyes open as light fills the room in gentle waves. She rises, places more wood on the fire, and moves with a kind of practiced ease that comes from tending home, tending people, tending light. The kitten has stretched herself out, warmer now, her chest rising with soft, steady breaths. May wakes not with an alarm, but with instinct. She always has. The air carries that peculiar freshness only found near the sea after rain, a trace of time growing wild near the stone wall. She steps outside for water, her boots pressing into the damp grass. From here, the glass looks like amber honey, and the brass shines even through the fog. Her breath curls in front of her face, and for a moment, she simply lets herself feel small, beneath something ancient and enduring. The lantern is still burning. It always is. May stands for a moment, looking up at it from below. The kitten stirs and stretches, letting out a tiny squeak before falling back into sleep. When she returns inside, the boy is awake. He blinks slowly, sitting up, the blanket falling to his lap. She's better, he says softly. May nods. She's a little lantern, too. Names, like the lantern, can carry many meanings. May helps him with the latch and hands him a small wrapped bundle for the road. When he finishes, he sets down his bowl, eyes still fixed on the little ball of life curled on the pillow. The boy smiles barely, but it's there. Do you live here alone? May glances toward the hearth, the book of keepers, the shawl on the hook, the scent of balm and candle smoke still clinging to the air. Not really, she says. He doesn't ask what she means. Sometimes it's easier to accept answers that don't explain everything. Others, it feels like a breath that never ended. They share warm porridge and a handful of berries. The boy eats quietly, occasionally brushing crumbs from the kitten's fur. My name's Tom, he says, almost like a question. The cliff's edge hums with the low music of the ocean. Waves roll and hiss, rolling endlessly onto invisible shores. May tends the garden, stirs soup on the stove, brushes dust from the chapel floor. May kneels before the lantern and adds a few drops of fresh oil. The flame brightens for a moment, then settles, as if sighing into sleep. Each act is quiet, slow, rhythmic rituals, as sacred as any spoken prayer. May, she replies, keeper of the light, of the hands that once held this same brass frame, of the woman who began the glow with nothing but grief and love. He nods, as if that makes sense, and for him, it does. Its wings cast delicate shadows, fleeting and beautiful. After a while, Tom says, it's time to go. The kitten now, slightly more lively, rides. Tucked in his coat, she drinks a final cup of mint tea, lets the wind thread its way through a cracked window, and wraps herself in the shawl of those who came before. There is a difference between emptiness and stillness. This place, this chapel, it is never empty. As he leaves, he looks back one last time at the chapel above. She imagines him, pausing to glance back at the lantern, maybe telling its story to someone else, in time. Will it always stay lit? May meets his eyes, and says the words every keeper learns. The flame hears them all, as long as someone believes in it. Yes, and with that, he turns and disappears, down the path that winds back to the world. May watches until he fades into the mist. Then she looks up once more, to the lantern. Some days, it feels like a star, trapped in glass. Today, it feels like both. The hours move like softened wax. By evening, the sky is once again ink dark, and the wind returns. Inside the chapel, the air holds a different kind of stillness. She lights 2 smaller candles, one for a name whispered yesterday, and one for a wish, yet unspoken. She does not need to know the names. As she sits in the back pew, a single moth flutters near the window, tracing soft spirals in the candlelight. May closes her eyes, listening not for sounds, but for silence. She thinks of Tom, walking the village road with a small, breathing life beneath his coat. And she thinks of Brida. Hope, they say, is the last flame to go out. The lantern proves it. Night after night, as sleep draws near, May returns to her cottage. In her dreams, she walks the path again. But this time the chapel is filled with people, keepers old and new, all watching the flame. Brida is there, kneeling at the altar, the first flame cradled in her palm. She smiles and nods, as if to say, it still burns. The dream fades slowly, like mist lifting from the sea. May wakes with a calm heart, the morning air cool against her cheek. Outside, gulls cry faintly over the cliffs, and the smell of sea thyme drifts through the window. The waves below crash louder than usual, white froth curling like ribbons around dark rocks. A storm is not far off. She rises without urgency, as the keepers always have. There is no rush in tending the eternal. Each time she enters, feels like stepping into another world. She lays her hand on the wood, whispering a greeting, and then crosses the threshold. Today, clouds hang low and heavy, as if the sky is leaning closer. May wraps her shawl tightly and makes her way to the chapel early. Her boots sink slightly into the damp earth. The path remembers her footsteps. At the door, she hesitates not from fear, but from reverence. The lantern is glowing still, not defiant, not proud, just present. Its light rests on the stone walls, like honey poured slow and steady. She sits near the altar this time, not to polish or tend, but just to be. Some days, the lantern asks for action. Some days, for stillness. Of storms that broke ships in half. Of nights when lightning clawed the sky, and the lantern stood through it all. Of a widow who climbed the cliff every night just to see the glow. Of a young man who saw it from sea and turned his ship just in time to escape the rocks. Rain begins to fall, not wild, but steady, tapping at the chapel windows like a familiar hand. She watches it flicker as the wind whistles past the eaves and the stone moans faintly. She lets herself drift not to sleep, but to the quiet space between waking and dream, the space where the lantern lives. They glance up toward the cliff, seeking that glow in the rain-dark sky. A sailor stares from his window, hands rough from the tide, heart steadied by golden light. A widow leaves her shutters open just a little, so she might see the flicker from her chair. And when they see it steady, unwavering, they feel something shift in their chests. A loosening, the kind of peace that doesn't ask questions. The lantern is strong. I think it remembers. Her thoughts drift to stories passed down through the keeper's book. It said the light listens, that it chooses moments to shine brighter not by magic, but by memory. She writes in it daily, not long entries, just fragments, whispers of days, feelings like salt on fingertips. And May believes that, too. She doesn't flinch. She steps into the wind, lantern glow behind her, and lifts her eyes to the sky. She opens a small notebook she carries leather-bound, worn soft with use. Today, she writes, storm coming. She closes the book gently, lays it beside her, and draws her shawl around her shoulders. The chapel breathes with her, but through a field of lanterns each, one floating in the air, like stars just above the grass. Brida does not speak. She only smiles and gestures toward them. Of years given in quiet service. Of stories whispered on stormy nights. The lantern glows, made golden by the rain on the glass. It looks soft, gentle, eternal. The same she used for the kitten, for Tom, for herself on sleepless nights. The tune isn't loud, it wouldn't carry over the storm, but it's steady, just like the light. Outside, the sky darkens. The storm arrives with slow power. The fire welcomes her again, and she dries her hair by its orange flickers. May does not move. She listens to it all, the storm, the flame, the hush between them. The chapel holds firm. The lantern glows on. The flame held. The house is safe. The hill remembers. So do I far below. In the village, people light candles of their own, the kind that just is. A mother hushes her child with stories of Saint Brida and the lantern that never fails. And May, the keeper, rests within it. Hours pass. The rain thickens. The sea roars louder, but the flame does not falter. At nightfall, May opens the chapel door. Rain spills sideways, wetting her face, her sleeves. Dark clouds swirl overhead like ink in water. Thunder groans, somewhere distant. She begins to hum. It's the same melody Brida once sang. She walks back to the cottage, soaked through, but peaceful. Later, wrapped in dry wool, she sits in her chair, with the keeper's book in her lap. She turns to the last blank page and writes, storm full now. She draws a small wave in the corner. It curls like the ocean reaching upward. Before bed, she looks once more to the window. May closes her eyes, and the room dims around her. Only the heartbeat of rain remains. In the hours that follow, dreams come again. This time, she is walking beside Brida, not in the chapel. One lantern flares brighter as May. She reaches out, and when her fingers touch the glass, she feels warmth not from fire, but from something deeper. The memory of care, and she hears a voice, not Brida's, not hers, but the voice of the lantern itself. It says only, keep what? Keep warm. May wakes just before dawn. The dream fades, but the words linger. The storm has passed. By morning, the world is hushed, wrapped in soft fog and rain-washed light. The sea has calmed. Now more breath than roar. She breathes it in deeply, filling her lungs with quiet renewal. The path to the chapel glistens, jeweled with droplets that cling to every blade of grass. May opens the door and lets the new air in. It smells of wet stone, salt, and wild rosemary. The sky above is streaked with pale gold, clouds peeling away like old parchment, revealing hidden light. She steps outside, basket in hand. The earth is tender beneath her boots, as though the storm soft even the bones of the hill. Her first stop is always the chapel. She climbs the path slowly, each footstep familiar. Birds sing in tentative notes, testing the morning that May has learned is its greatest power not to dazzle, not to change, but to remain. When she opens the chapel door, the lantern greets her with its glow. Unchanged, undimmed, it is not brighter, nor weaker, but simply present, a long stretch of blue-gray, glittering where the sun touches it. The kind of view people cross continents to find. May sees it every day, and still, it humbles her. He carries no map, no walking stick, no words at first. With reverent care, she cleans the brass frame, rubs a touch of balm under the hinges, checks the oil level. The ritual is never skipped, not even on the quietest days. That is how the flame stays strong, not by accident, but by devotion. She whispers her thanks. Then he accepts with a quiet thank you and rests his pack on the floor. His hands tremble slightly, not from age, but from wear. A long road, walked alone. The floorboards creak gently beneath her. Her fingers find the polished cloth. When she finishes, she sits for a while in the pew, a lantern that never goes out. From here, she sees the sea through the chapel window. There are stories in the waves. The keepers used to say that if you listened carefully, the sea would tell you who needed the light tonight. Years ago, she never stopped talking about it, and sometimes, May thinks she hears it. That afternoon a traveler arrives. He is older, wrapped in a threadbare cloak, boots heavy with mud. May finds him at the edge of the garden, staring up at the lantern. "You're welcome to come in," she says gently. He doesn't turn right away, just nods. "Would you mind if I sat in the chapel for a while?" Said it helped her sleep just knowing it was out there. Somewhere, they don't speak. The wind moves gently between them, like a third presence. She passed last winter, quietly, peacefully. But I couldn't stop walking. I needed to see it for myself, needed to know it wasn't just something we made up. The lantern burns on behind him, a promise kept. Inside the cottage, she offers tea and a seat by the fire. "It's real," she says softly, "and it's still for her." That even the smallest spark carries the memory of fire long past. After a few minutes, he speaks. "I wasn't sure it was real," he says. "I thought maybe I'd imagined it. I thought I'd feel sadder seeing it again." May pours the tea slowly. "Some people say that it speaks to all of us in time. But here it is," he murmurs. "Yes," she replies. "Here it is." He sips in silence for a while, eyes fixed on the window, where the light glows even in daylight. May leaves him there. "My wife saw it once," he says suddenly. May says, "Nothing. The story is coming. It always does." She used to say it was like a heartbeat. He looks lighter, somehow. Not healed, but held. He clears his throat. May offers a small nod. The man wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. "Sometimes," May says, "what stays behind helps us carry what's gone." He closes his eyes for a moment, then opens them again. "Not at all." She walks with him up the path. Inside the chapel, he sits in the front pew. From the garden, she can see him through the window, just a shape, still and small. The lantern shines above him like a silent companion. Hours pass. The sun arcs across the sky and slips behind the hills. When the man finally emerges, his eyes are calm. He places a coin on the doorstep of the chapel, a token, old tradition, something left behind in exchange for peace. "Thank you," he says to May. She nods. "Safe journey." And he walks away, back down the path that brought him here. That night, May lights her bedside candle with a small taper drawn from the chapel flame. She watches it flicker. It's said that all flames remember the one that came before. She believes that, too. In the hush of her cottage, as shadows stretch across the stone floor, she writes, "He found what he was looking for." The lantern spoke to him. She closes the book, leans back, and lets her breath slow. The glow from the chapel reaches her window. The light is not loud. It never has been. But it is always there, and so May, the keeper of the lantern, drifts gently into sleep. In sleep, the past sometimes visits. May dreams again not of Brida, not of the chapel, but of the flame itself. In her dream, it floats, bodiless and golden, through a vast darkness that does not frighten her. The flame hums gently, not in sound, but in feeling, like warmth curling through a wool blanket on a winter's night. It moves ahead of her, always just far enough that she must keep walking, but never so far she feels lost. The darkness begins to change, turning into stone walls and candlelit paths. She is inside the chapel, but younger, older, both. Generations flicker like lantern light around her. She sees glimpses of other keepers walking the same aisle, kneeling in the same place, polishing the same brass. And through it all, the flame remains unchanged. She wakes with a tear on her cheek, and a sense of something sacred having touched her skin. The sun has not yet risen, but the light from the lantern, high above the chapel, still flickers through the morning mist. May dresses quietly and steps outside. The earth is damp beneath her boots, and a few lone stars linger, pale and retreating. She climbs the path, not as a ritual, but as a calling. When she opens the chapel door, she finds something waiting for her, a letter. It rests, folded on the altar, beside the lantern. Inside, in delicate ink, is a single line. The parchment is creased, sealed with beeswax, stamped with a spiral her own mark. But she did not write it. Her breath kept. She opens it slowly. When it is your time to rest, the flame will know. It will not end, only pass. There is no signature, no explanation, only truth. May sits down. She places the letter in the Book of Keepers, between her own entries. She runs her hand across the page, then over the brass edge of the lantern. Outside, the first soft, golden light of morning brushes the sea. The water is calm, the world hushed, and the lantern glows. That day passes without visitors, without wind, without need. She gathers stones from the path and smooths them with a cloth, polishing them to leave at the chapel step a habit she picked up from Brida's notes. Stones carry memory, the entry had said, and roots remember. Who walks above them? May spends it in the garden, trimming lavender and rosemary, harvesting thyme and mint. She sprinkles a pinch at each corner, an old ritual of blessing and protection, one known only to the keepers. She hums as she does it, her voice low, slow, meant for no one but the stones and the flame. That evening, she cooks vegetable stew, enough for two even though she dines alone. She lights 2 candles, one for herself, one for whoever is in need. She reads her oldest entry from the keeper's book, then the one she wrote the day she first arrived. It feels distant and near at once. And then she adds a new page. This one says, "I do not know when I will stop climbing the hill, but when I do, someone will begin. The lantern will guide them." She draws the same spiral beside the words. Later, she takes a small pouch filled with dried herbs and walks to chapel once more. As she leaves, she lingers in the doorway, eyes on the lantern. It flickers, almost playfully. She smiles. Another day passes, and another. The way she stands, still and listening. Then, on the 3rd evening, just before dusk, a girl arrives. The girl opens the box. Inside is a tiny glass bottle filled with sea glass beads. She said they were for when I found the place with a light that never goes out. Barefoot, with hair tangled from wind, and a quiet curiosity in her eyes. She doesn't speak at first, just stands at the garden gate, hands wrapped around a small wooden box. May sets down her watering can and walks over. "Are you lost?" she asks softly. The girl shakes her head. "No, I followed the light." May studies her for a moment. Something about the girl feels familiar, not in face or form, but in presence. The way the air bends around her. May opens the gate. Inside, they sit together on the bench, beneath the swaying branches of the fig tree. My grandmother gave them to me, the girl says. May's eyes sting, but she doesn't let the tears fall. Did she tell you what it meant? The girl nods. She said it was a promise. They sit for a long time, watching the lantern begin to glow against the darkening sky. The girl eventually asks, "Can I see it?" May smiles. "Of course, only if you feel the flame inside you, too." They walk the path side by side. When they reach the chapel, May opens the door and gestures for the girl to step inside first. The girl does, and she gasps, not loudly but like someone who's just seen a dream made real. May follows, standing quietly as the girl approaches the altar. The lantern flickers once, and in that flicker, May knows. It's time. She kneels one final time, not to tend, but to give thanks. Then she gently places the key brass and wand into the girl's hand. The girl looks up. "Am I supposed to?" May nods. The girl holds the key to her chest and closes her eyes, and the lantern glows brighter. May does not return to the cottage that night. Instead, she remains in the chapel, seated near the girl, no longer a visitor, but a vessel. The kind of soul the lantern it always knows. They sit in silence. The only sound, the soft tick of wind brushing the stone outside. No words are needed. There is something sacred about passing on without ceremony. Just presence, just peace. After some time, the girl opens her wooden box again. From it, she pulls a small cloth pouch and a folded note. "My grandmother wrote it for the day I arrived here. This was hers," she says, voice barely above a breath. She hands it to May, whose fingers shake slightly, not from weakness, but from the weight of memory. "If not, let her know she kept the light for us all." She unfolds the note. It reads, "If she is still there, thank her." May folds the note again, her hand resting over it. "Your grandmother, was she Tom's daughter? She told stories about a kitten and a lantern in a storm." The girl smiles, eyes wet. How to polish the brass without scratching, where to place the stones, how to hum the tune on nights when grief visits. May laughs softly, the sound like dried leaves stirring across old stone. "She came back," she says, "in you. Outside, the sky darkens. Stars bloom slowly above the sea. The lantern gleams golden, brighter than any star." May teaches the girl the oil blend. She tells her, it's not about keeping the flame alive. It's about letting it rest in you. The girl picks it up, slowly, reverently, and tucks it into her pocket. The girl nods. She listens well. The chapel feels warmer, as though the lantern itself is embracing her. When May finally rises, it is with no pain, no resistance. Her bones feel light, her breath even. They step outside together, two shadows against the soft light spilling from the chapel window. At the cottage, May prepares one last cup of tea. The room smells of lavender, salt, and wax. Familiar, safe. The girl sits beside her at the table, tracing the rim of her mug with quiet fingers. "Will you leave tonight?" she asks. May shakes her head. "Not leave, just fade." She places her key, now warm from the girl's hand, on the windowsill. May writes one final line in the keeper's book. The flame found her. As it always does, her presence is not a figure, not a ghost, but a hush, a warmth, a knowing. Then she signs her name with no date, just a spiral. The girl watches her gently close the cover and place the book beside the hearth, where the glow of the coals flickers across the leather. May smiles. It's yours now. That night, the girl sleeps in the keeper's bed for the first time. The lantern shines through the window, golden and soft, and May walks the dream path again, but this time, she does not follow the flame. She becomes it. She drifts above the hill and the chapel, casting warm light on the sea below. In the village, Those who wake in the night feel strangely comforted, though they don't know why. The widow dreams of someone sitting with her again. A fisherman wakes and smiles. Without understanding, the girl stirs, then sighs, and sinks deeper into sleep. The lantern does not flicker. It burns, steady and strong, and May, like all the keepers before her, becomes part of the flame. By morning, the girl rises early. She walks the chapel path as if she has always known it. The key fits in her hand like it was carved for her. Inside, the flame greets her. She tends it, careful and quiet. Then she kneels, not because she must, but because she understands. She opens the book and writes her first line. The flame is home, and I am ready. Outside, a new wind stirs the grass. The sea below glimmers with light, and above the chapel, the Lantern of Saint Brida shines an unchanged. Weeks pass. The girl, her name is Leela, settles into the keeper's rhythm like a stone nestling into riverbed. Slowly, surely, she becomes a part of the place. Each morning, she rises before the first go cries. She walks barefoot through duet grass, listening to the hush of the sea. She wraps herself in the same old shawl May wore, the edges mended with careful thread. She speaks to the lantern. Even when it doesn't answer, she hums as she polishes the frame. The same tune May once used, and Brida before her. A lullaby passed on like fire from wit to wit. In the village, some whisper that a new girl now tends the light. Others nod quietly, sensing a change but not questioning it. The chapel has always had a keeper, and it always will. Some days, visitors arrive. An old woman with shaking hands, who asks only to sit inside the chapel and say nothing. A sailor's son who lights a candle for the father he never met. A tired midwife who leans against the altar, whispering thanks for a safe birth. Leela welcomes them all. She does not preach. She does not explain. She simply holds space, keeps the oil warm, and lets the lantern do what it does best. One misty afternoon, a letter arrives. It slipped beneath the cottage door, edges damp with fog. Leela finds it after returning from her walk. Inside is a sketched-off pencil line showing the lantern atop the chapel, surrounded by curling wind and sea. Below it is a single sentence. I saw the light from the mainland. It helped me find my way back. No name, no return address, just proof. The lantern reaches farther than any flame should. That evening, she places the letter inside the keeper's book and writes beside it. It glows even where no one sees. The days move with a slow grace of tide and breath. She plants new lavender in the garden. The voices of every keeper before her. Not loud, not even words, but warmth. A shared hum, a steady rhythm like heartbeat and tide. She adds sprigs of rosemary to the oil blend. She begins learning the chapel's stones by heart, tracing the cracks with her fingers, whispering thanks to the walls that sheltered the flame. And one night, just as the moon rises full and round she dreams, she walks a long corridor of candlelight. Each flame flickers as she passes, greeting her. In the silence between, she hears them. At the end of the corridor stands the lantern, and beside it, May. Her presence is as real as the scent of time, as steady as the chapel stones. May does not speak. She simply places a hand on Lila's shoulder and nods. The dream fades with a warmth that lingers long after she wakes. She lies in bed, moonlight brushing her cheek, and understands she is not alone. The keepers never are. The flame remembers them all. Later that week, a storm begins to gather. Dark clouds roll in from the horizon. The sea grows restless, waves pushing harder at the cliff base. Lila watches from the chapel door, her shawl drawn tight. She does not fear it. She climbs the ladder, steady as stone, and checks the lantern. The oil is full, the glass clean, the wick trimmed. As the first drops of rain begin to fall, she lights a single beeswax candle and places it in the chapel window below. For any traveler caught on the path, for anyone who might need a second light. The storm arrives heavy and wild. Winds howl through the cliffs. The sea churns black and white. But the lantern holds. then climbs the path with her shawl trailing behind her, and kneels once more in the chapel. Through the howling, through the rain, through the long, aching night, it shines. Leela sleeps lightly, ears attuned to the chapel's bones. And when dawn breaks torn and golden through the clouds, she opens the door to a world renewed. A bird sings. The path is strewn with broken branches and wildflowers blown from the hillside. And above, shining, steady as ever, the lantern remains. She laughs softly, a private, breathless laugh, not from weariness, but from wonder. She writes in the keeper's book, "It weathered the storm. I think it danced with it." She draws a swirl, shaped like wind, meeting fire. Later, she bakes bread and leaves 2 slices on the chapel step. A gift, not for anyone in particular, just for the light. And as she returns to the cottage, a new sense settles in her bones. Not pride, not burden, but belonging. The kind that takes root slowly and stays for a lifetime. Autumn comes softly to the cliff. The grass shifts from green to gold, and the sea deepens to a colder, bluer hue. The winds change direction, curling in from the north, and the lantern's glass gathers mist more often now. Its glow, a gentle halo through the fog. Leela wakes before the light again. Her days begin not by alarm, but by instinct, by the whisper of wind at the shutters and the soft pool of dawn behind the hills. Fallen leaves gather in corners, and she carefully sweeps them aside, not to erase the season, but to clear the way for those who seek the flame. She wraps herself in a thicker shawl now, lined with wool and stitched with spirals. The path to the chapel crunches faintly underfoot, their melodies live on, folded into stone and air. Inside, she hums, as she works, like a sleeping heartbeat. The air inside the chapel smells of apple peel, polished wood, and flickering oil. Some days she sings aloud songs without words, passed down from keepers whose names are nearly forgotten. Today, she hums a tune that came to her in sleep, low and slow, like the sea brushing rock. After the tending is done, she sits in the back pew, her hands around a mug of warmed cider. She writes another line in the book. The flame is quieter now, but no less sure. Later, a child comes to the door. His scarf is wrapped 3 times around his neck. Just stands, eyes wide, staring at the lantern overhead. His boots are too big and untied. He doesn't say anything at first. Then, very quietly, he says, "Can I be a flame one day too?" Lila kneels to meet his gaze. "Would you like to come inside?" He nods, eyes shining. She leads him into the chapel and sits beside him on the front bench. He whispers, "Is it real fire?" The feeling of slipping into something that has waited just for you. Places it near the base of the lantern, beside a stone shaped like a fish and a feather left by someone days ago. She nods. But it doesn't go out. Not while someone tends it. He watches it for a long time, swinging his legs. She tucks the bundle into a small glass jar and places it near the hearth. Leela places a hand over his heart. "You already are." Feels the shift in the air. Tastes the change on her tongue. He smiles, then runs off, his scarf trailing behind him like a ribbon on the wind. Autumn winds howl louder each day. That night, she lights a candle just for him. Offerings, symbols, gratitude. She finds herself smiling more, now not from joy alone, but from recognition. One evening, near the end of harvest, she finds something hidden beneath a floorboard in the cottage. A bundle of pressed flowers, wrapped in parchment. Inside is a note in May's hand. For the next, in case the seasons grow hard, Lila unfolds it gently, touching each bloom. Lavender, rosemary, bay. The scents are faint but still alive. It becomes part of the home, as all things do, with time. The sea grows restless again. Lila watches the sky. One morning, she finds a gull with a broken wing just below the chapel steps. She gathers it gently into a cloth and brings it to the cottage. She places it near the fire, feeds it water from a spoon, and hums to it as she wraps the injury. 4 days. She tends it, each movement careful. She names it when the bird does not fight, it rests. When the wing heals enough, she carries Wendell up the path to remember. At the chapel threshold, the gull hops from her hands and lifts into the air, first wobbly, then sure. It circles once, high above the lantern, and lets out a sharp cry echoing like a bell. Then it flies out toward the sea. Lila watches until it vanishes into the sky's open mouth. That night, the flame flares briefly, brighter than she's ever seen. She does not fear it. She only whispers, "Thank you." The villagers continue to leave offerings at the chapel step. A knitted square, a tiny bottle of seawater, a note unsigned that reads, "It helped me breathe again." Lila doesn't keep them. She places each one in a cedar box by the altar, where they rest with reverence. Every few weeks, she opens the box, just to touch them gently. Each item a story, each one a reminder. She writes in the book, "This is not my lantern. It belongs to everyone who ever hoped in the dark." The days grow shorter, the sea louder, winter approaches. But the lantern still glows constant, golden, soft. It does not demand, it only remains. The first snow arrives before dawn. Layla wakes to silence, not emptiness, but the kind that blankets the world and hushes it into stillness. The air smells different, crisp and dry, edged with frost. She draws her shawl close and presses her fingers to the windowpane. Outside, the hill is dusted in silver. Footprints, hers still, mark the path to the chapel. A faint trail curving through the snow. She dresses slowly, layers upon layers, and steps into the morning with breath misting from her lips. The world feels paused. Every branch holds a cap of white. Every stone wears a thin sheen of ice. Only the lantern burns unchanged, glowing above the chapel with quiet certainty, a golden ember against the pale sky. Inside the chapel, it is warmer than she expects. The flame seems to hum louder in the cold, a steady thrum that seeps into her bones. She hums back. The song today is low and winding, not a tune she remembers, but one that arrives on its own, born from snow and silence, and the comfort of light. She tends the flame, as usual oil, wick, polish, but adds something new. A single cedar sprig tucked into the lantern's base, a winter gift. She lights 2 candles, one for warmth, one for waiting, and then she sits, notebook open, pen in hand. But the path was still clear. The light doesn't just show the way it remembers it. Today, she writes, "It snowed." That evening, a couple visits the chapel. They arrive quietly, arm in arm, leaving twin tracks through the snow. Lila watches them from the window, waiting until they step inside before following. They stand before the lantern without speaking. Then the woman reaches into her coat and pulls out a small bundle, a pair of booties, no larger than the palm of her hand. She lays them gently on the stone step. Lila steps forward. "They're for the child we're waiting for," the man says softly. "We weren't sure we could. And then we saw the light." Lila feels something bloom in her chest, tender and slow. She nods, then lights a 3rd candle. The work warms her, and each footstep pressed into fresh snow feels like a blessing for new beginnings. She whispers. The couple stays a while longer, hands joined, hearts steady, and when they leave, the booties remain, tiny woolen hope resting in the chapel's glow. Snow continues for days. The path must be cleared twice each morning. But Lila does not mind. She lines the walkway with hang-dried oranges from the chapel windows, adds a sprinkle of cinnamon to the oil, just enough for the lantern to carry a whisper of spite. She dreams often now. Each shape lingers only a moment, then melts into warmth. Of May, of Brida, of the girl with the kitten, now grown into a grandmother who sent her granddaughter here with beads and stories. And always, always, of the flame. One night, she dreams. The lantern lifts from its frame and floats across the chapel, tracing golden shapes into the air, spirals, waves, stars, hearts. She wakes smiling. She understands now. The lantern is more than a flame. No envelope. Just folded paper, sealed with wax, in the shape of a feather. It is a keeper of memory, of kindness, of belief. It doesn't just shine for the lost. It shines for the found. One evening, a letter arrives in the cedar box. Inside, the words. I was ready to stop, but then I saw the light, and I kept going. No signature, no need. Lila places it with the others. The snow deepens, the wind sharpens, the nights stretch longer, and still, the flame burns. On the coldest night of the season, the sea roars with a fury that rattles the shutters. Lila pulls her chair close to the fire. Shawl wrapped snug, notebook balanced on her knees. She writes, "The storm outside cannot touch the flame inside. We all carry something like this. A warmth that survives." She closes the book gently, then glances at the lantern, glowing through the glass. Soft, steady, waiting. Winter slowly loosens its grip. The dawns grow a little warmer. Though frost still laces the grass, the sea shifts from icy gray to a deeper blue, and the sky blushes with soft hints of spring. Lila rises early. As always, her footsteps sound softer now on the soft earth, where snow has melted into puddles and new shoots. She wraps a fresh shawl around her shoulders, one woven with threads of soft green and blue, like the sea after rain. The path to the chapel is muddy in places, but still clear, and she moves with a steady grace, the rhythm of the hill becoming part of her breath. Inside the chapel, the lantern glows bright, its flame steady, despite the dampness of early spring. Lila hums as she tends the flame, her voice blending with the sounds of dripping water and distant birdsong. Today, she opens the keeper's book and reads aloud some of the Brida's and her own, softly, as if sharing secrets with the walls. Her words fill the space like gentle warmth. After tending the lantern, she steps outside into the garden. The herbs she planted last autumn had begun to green again, rosemary, thyme, and lavender pushing through soft earth. She touches the leaves lightly, smiling at the promise of growth. A breeze stirs the branches of the fig tree, and she closes her eyes, feeling the cool air brush her skin. It carries the scent of rain to come. Later, a visitor appears at the gate, an old man, bent but steady, carrying a small wooden box. He looks up at the lantern and nods. Lila invites him in. He tells her of a village far away, where they to keep a light burning for those who wander. He places the box on the altar and opens it to reveal a small oil lamp, worn but shining. A gift, he says, from those who believe in the flame. Lila thanks him quietly. They sit together by the fire, sharing tea and stories that feel ancient and new all at once. As the man prepares to leave, he places a folded note in Lila's hand. The flame connects us all. She watches him walk down the path, the lantern glowing softly behind her. That night, she places the note in the keeper's book. She writes beside it, "The light is never alone. The days lengthen, the sea, and the lantern shines on an ever-present pulse." In the heart of the hill, Lila feels the steady rhythm of her life entwined with it. Each breath, a prayer. Each moment, a gift. And in the quiet between, the flame waits, steady and sure. Spring deepens, and the world awakens fully. Wildflowers bloom along the cliffside, splashes of purple, yellow and white swaying in the gentle breeze. The sea shimmers with sunlight, calm and endless. Lila walks the path each morning, breath mingling with the crisp air and the scent of thyme and rosemary. The chapel welcomes her with familiar warmth, its stones glowing softly in the dawn light. The flame flickers in response, steady and bright. She tends the lantern with practiced hands, oiling the wick, polishing the brass, and whispering the ancient tune. Each day, she feels the presence of those who came before, and countless others whose names are lost but whose love remains. Visitors come and go, pilgrims, seekers, wanderers all, drawn by the promise of the ever-burning light. One afternoon, a young woman arrives, carrying a bundle wrapped in soft cloth. She kneels before the lantern, tears shining in her eyes. Leela offers a gentle smile and places a hand on the woman's shoulder. "I've come to thank the light," the woman says. "It guided me through the darkest days." Together, they sit in the quiet chapel, sharing stories of hope and healing. As twilight falls, the woman leaves a small silver charm on the altar, a token of gratitude and remembrance. Lila watches the glow of the lantern, feeling the weight and warmth of all who have found comfort here. She writes in the keeper's book, "The flame is a beacon for the lost, a home for the weary." That night, as the stars appear one by one, Lila lies beneath a blanket of woven wool, the scent of lavender drifting from her pillow. She listens to the gentle crackle of the hearth fire and the distant call of seabirds, settling in for the night. Her thoughts drift to the flame, how it connects past and present, earth and sky, heart and soul. She breathes deeply and lets herself sink into the quiet embrace of sleep. In her dreams, she walks a path of light, each step a soft glow beneath her feet. The lantern shines ahead, unwavering and warm, guiding her through shadow and silence. And as she sleeps, the light watches over her, steady as the tide, eternal as the stars. Summer's first light spills over the horizon, bathing the cliff in soft hues of pink and gold. Lila rises early, the familiar chill replaced by a gentle warmth that seeps into her bones. The garden around the chapel blooms in vibrant colors while time, bright daisies and sweet honeysuckle weaving scents into the air. She walks the path with bare feet now, feeling the rough stone and soft earth beneath her toes. At the chapel door, the lantern's glow greets her like an old friend, steady, warm, alive. Inside, she tends the flame with quiet reverence, humming the melody that has become a part of her breath. She thinks of the keepers before her owl. Each one carried this light through storms, through darkness, through endless nights. A breeze slips through the open window, carrying the distant sound of waves and the rustle of leaves. Leela closes her eyes, letting the sounds weave around her. Outside, a group of children gathers near the garden gate, their laughter bright and free. They peer through the window, eyes wide with wonder at the golden light within. Lila smiles and opens the door. "Would you like to see the lantern?" she asks softly. The children nod eagerly. She leads them inside, showing how the flame dances and glows, how it is tended with care and love. She tells them stories of Brida, of Maya, of the long line of keepers who never let the light go out. The children listen, eyes shining, breath quiet, in the sacred space. As the sun dips low, casting amber shadows across the stone floor, Lila places a hand on the lantern. She whispers, "The light is for all of you, now and always." After the children leave, she sits by the window, watching the sky deepen to twilight blue. The lantern glows, unwavering. She writes in the keeper's book, "The flame lives in hearts, in stories, in hands that tend and hold." That night, sleep comes easy, soft, and deep. She dreams of light pouring like honey over the hills, filling valleys, reaching the farthest corners. And in that dream, she knows the lantern's promise is true. No darkness lasts forever. No light fades completely. It is always there waiting, welcoming, warm. Autumn returns gently, wrapping the cliff in its golden embrace. Once more, Lila walks the winding path with a heart full of quiet joy, her steps soft on the mossy earth. The lantern shines, as it always has, steady, warm, a beacon in the shifting light. Inside the chapel, she tends the flame with the same care and devotion that has been passed down through generations. Her hands move slowly, lovingly, oiling the wick, polishing the brass, whispering the ancient tune that connects her to all who came before. The days grow shorter, and the air cools, but the light remains undimmed. One evening, as the sun sinks low, casting long shadows across the chapel floor, Lila places a small, folded note beside the lantern. It reads simply, "To the next keeper may this light guide you as it has guided us all." She signs it with a spiral, the symbol of the flame's endless journey. Lila steps outside, feeling the breeze on her face, the scent of rosemary and wild thyme carried on the air. She looks up at the glowing lantern, her heart calm and full. The path before her is clear, and as night falls, the lantern's golden light spills softly across the hill, across the sea, across the world. A promise kept, a story never-ending, for those who need it, for those who believe, for those who find their way home in the darkest hours. And in that glow, gentle and sure, all who watch and listen are wrapped in its warmth, safe, held, at peace.